A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. This is news from the Muslim Ummah, IBN TV8. Every Sunday, we bring you a snapshot of events in the Muslim world from Africa, the Far East, the Middle East, and we look at the commodity markets. Stories in the news tonight. Gaddafi pledges to revenge US-led attacks. Syrian and Libyan protesters converge on Washington, D.C. King Abdulaziz of Saudi Arabia offers $91 billion in handouts. Iraq's Tariq Aziz receives a life sentence, and world oil prices surge in Asian trade. IBN TV on Channel 8 is streaming on the World Wide Web at www.ibntt.com, keeping you in the forefront of our changing world. Tonight in our challenge slot, Name That Capital, we will ask you to identify the capital city of a selected country. Also in tonight's news, we have a special report from Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. with freelance IBN correspondent Ruqayyah Ahmed and Olivia Drake. I am Raziah Ahmed. Assalamu alaikum. Our top story tonight from North Africa. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us on news from the Muslim Ummah on IBN TV Channel 8. And in our Name That Capital series tonight, our challenge is name the capital city of Turkey. That question again, name the capital city of Turkey. We'll give you the answer later in tonight's news. Shifting now to news from the Middle East, from Syria. Syrian forces have reportedly attacked anti-government protesters in a southwestern city, killing one person and wounding more than 100 others. The Sunday rallies in Bara were attended by some 10,000 people and activists reported on condition of anonymity. The security forces, backed by police, fired live rounds at the demonstrators, the witness said. On Saturday, thousands gathered in the city of Dara, which is located south of Damascus, to mourn the death of 4 people killed during the demonstration. On Friday, the mourners chanted slogans as they carried the coffin of the victims. In news from Damascus, on Friday, plainclothes Syrian police and dozens of security forces gathered outside the Umayyad Mosque in Damascus. They later broke up a protest after Jummah Salah or Friday prayer at the main mosque in central Damascus, dragging away at least 2 activists, according to witnesses. A crowd outside the men's section of the Umayyad Mosque started chanting and shouting in crescendo after Friday prayers, according to reports. At least 200 people immediately gathered in a square outside the mosque in opposition to the earlier protests. They were chanting support for President Bashar al-Assad and waving Syrian flags. Some carried portraits of his late father and predecessor, Hafiz al-Assad. Terrified families could be seen fleeing the square, with many children in tears. Syrian authorities, which stepped up arrests of dissidents since the Arab uprisings began in January, have a history of crushing dissent. In 1982, Bashar al-Assad's father sent troops to put down a rebellion in the city of Hama, killing thousands. Syria is still under a 1963 emergency law that bans demonstrations. And in other news out of Syria, from Dera, on Friday, 3,000 to 4,000 people leaving the city's Omari Mosque after Jummah prayer chanted Allah, Syria, freedom, and slogans accusing the president's family of corruption, residents said. Security forces fired water cannons at them and then opened fire with live ammunition. Protesters threw stones in response and set fire to a car and a police kiosk, one witness said. And in related news from Washington, D.C. yesterday, hundreds converged on Washington, D.C. yesterday to protest the events occurring in their countries. Among the protesters were Libyans and Syrians chanting for freedom for their countrymen. IBN TV special reporter Ruqayyah Ahmed was in Washington, D.C. yesterday to capture video footage of events there and filed this special report.
In Washington, D.C., people were gathered in front of the White House to demonstrate against the dictatorship in Syria and to show their support for their fellow brothers and sisters living in the revolution. Protesters are shouting for freedom. While Americans and other Westerners have the practiced right of freedom of speech, a right that we sometimes take for granted, others are not so fortunate. They've gathered and they're shouting, like their brothers in the East, championing for their cause as well. Over the last month, uprisings fueled by unemployment, economic suffering, and long-term discontent have rocked a number of countries in the Middle East, including Syria, Libya, Bahrain, Iran, Egypt, and Tunisia.
Assalamu alaikum. I am Ruqayyah Ahmed reporting from Washington, D.C., and I'm here with Dr. Muhammad Kawam. Dr. Kawam, please tell us what's going on today.
We are protesting what's going on basically in Syria with the Bashar al-Assad regime, which they've been killing people and imprisoning people who are trying to protest the dictatorship.
Can you give us a little bit of a brief historical perspective on what's going on in Syria right now?
Well, Syria is a Middle Eastern country. Basically, was ruled since 1970 by the Assad family, starting with the father Assad, who rules it with iron fist. The Assad father was very brutal. He killed many people, more than hundreds of thousands. Specifically in the big cities in the middle of Syria, one of the cities called Hama. In 3 weeks he killed at least he killed about more than 40,000 people.
These protesters want to be heard, not only by the U.S. government, but also by the people living in Syria, Libya, and Yemen. To let them know that their cries are being heard, people in the United States are supporting you.
Thank you, Dr. Kawam. This is Ruqayyah Ahmed reporting from Washington, D.C., bringing you up-to-minute coverage of the protests in Washington. Thank you.
And that's our IBN special report. Special thanks to our Washington, D.C. correspondents, Ruqayyah Ahmed and Olivia Drake. So what is this about? A pan-Arab youth movement has so far forced 2 dictators to step down, Zain al-Abidin bin Ali of Tunisia and Hosni Mubarak of Egypt, and is turning the most volatile region in the world on its head. The youth movement claims that statist and dictatorial policies have led to serious limits to freedom throughout the Arab-speaking world. Economic stagnation and lagging living standards are prevalent, they say. These regimes have maintained control using the carrot and the stick approach, rewarding supporters and punishing opponents. According to these protesters, the Syrian people are facing totalitarian dictatorship. They have been oppressed and denied basic freedom, including freedom of speech. They say Syrians have religious freedom, but pious and devout Muslims are taunted and tortured for their practice of Islam. Protesters report arrests of people and their families and who speak out against government. Once in jail, prisoners are tortured and they have no communication with the outside world. On to news from Saudi Arabia, out of time.